Hello and welcome. I'm Anand Naidu, sitting in for Riz Khan. From his inaugural address in Washington last year to his historic speech in Cairo, US President Barack Obama promised to repair his country's tattered reputation abroad and improve ties in the world. The White House says this administration's foreign goals are based on dialogue and engagement. One of Obama's key challenges was to move the stalled Israeli-Palestinian peace process forward. But both sides have not yet gone to the negotiation table. Obama made overtures towards Iran, which included sending a video message last year to mark the New Year celebration of Nowruz, but there was not much of a response from Tehran. Facing two wars, the US president promised to pull back troops from Iraq, but he's sending more soldiers to Afghanistan. Today we ask, has Barack Obama's promise of change translated to foreign policy success? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. And you can, of course, also send us an SMS or email, and we welcome your phone calls on the show as well. Joining me are Dr. Stephen Walt, Professor of International Affairs at Harvard University. He is the co-author of the New York Times bestseller, The Israel Lobby and U.S. Foreign Policy. He also writes a blog at foreignpolicy.com. Professor Walt joins us from Cambridge, Massachusetts. From London, Christopher Dickey, the Paris Bureau Chief and Middle East Regional Editor for Newsweek magazine. And Professor Philip Bobbitt, known for his work on history, military strategy and constitutional theory. He teaches law at the University of Texas in Austin, from where he joins us today. He has published several books, the latest being Terror and Consent, The Wars for the 21st Century. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Christopher Dickey, let me start with you, and this is a very broad question, but when it comes to the foreign policy of this administration, do you believe that the president has made much progress in resolving some of the major problems the world faces today? And I'm thinking mainly here of the Middle East and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Well, he's probably made more progress than he seems to have done. I mean, I think the first thing that you have to look at is the American brand, as it were. America is held in much higher esteem now than it was a little over a year ago. Certainly much higher esteem than it was held in 2007 and 2008. So as a result, he's got a better foundation to work with. For the specifics of trying to resolve the Arab-Israeli conflict, trying to get out of Iraq, trying to get out of Afghanistan, in fact, but in some way that doesn't leave complete chaos behind, these are all part of a process that's going to take a very long time. And I think that the most unforgiving audience has actually been the American audience, the political environment in the United States. I think abroad, he still has quite a lot of credit. And you can see it even in the newspapers and magazines today, where you've got a magazine like The Economist, a conservative magazine in Britain, a liberal newspaper like Libération in France, and both of them are saying, you know what, he's done a pretty good job. So I think that that is good news for him, but when it comes to really resolving the major conflicts, that's going to be a process that's going to take another few years, at least.
Dr. Walt, do you agree that he's done a pretty good job?
I think he's launched a number of initiatives that are in the right direction, and I agree with Christopher that if you look at public opinion surveys in virtually every part of the world, the American image has improved dramatically from where it was a year ago. The central problem he's facing is that none of the items on his to-do list are easily fixed. You're not going to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in a few months. You're not going to be able to solve the problems in Central Asia even in a few years. There's nothing here that's easy to check off. The biggest concern I have is that some of the steps he's taken, like escalating the war in Afghanistan, may actually dig us deeper. And some of his other actions, raising everyone's expectations in the Cairo speech and then retreating rather rapidly from that position, may actually make things harder rather than easier going forward.
Professor Bobbitt, U.S. foreign policy under George Bush was driven and formulated to some extent by what he called the war on terror. We all remember what that administration used to say, you're either with us or against us. Has that changed under the Obama administration, or is this administration simply following the Bush script?
Oh, I think it has changed. And in fact, I think that could be the great political significance of the enhanced status and stature that the president has, as pointed out by Mr. Dickey and Professor Walt. These are all projects that the president, the United States, can't do alone. But finding partners who are empowered to work with us isn't easy. When the president's status rises, when people feel towards him a measure of goodwill, when they feel the United States is roughly on the right track, that makes it easier for us to find partners in many countries, not least among our allies.
Dr. Walt, we've received an email here from India. It's from Riz Khan, and he writes, Obama's outreach towards the Middle East was eclipsed by the powerful Zionist lobby in the United States. Now, you've written a book on this, The Israel Lobby, which is about the power of the Israel lobby here in Washington on U.S. foreign policy. Now, the president and his team have not made much progress on resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but to what extent can we attribute that to the Israel lobby here?
Well, there's no question that the position Obama took early on when he said that no further Israeli settlements, including no natural growth, and where he was pushing very hard for renewed negotiations quickly, that was opposed by a number of powerful groups in the United States who didn't like the idea of the president putting much pressure on Israel. And we've seen ever since the Cairo speech, the Obama administration pull back from a more confrontational position. So I think there's been some impact there. I also fault the administration, however, for not having thought this one through in advance. They don't appear to have asked the question what they were going to do if the Netanyahu government didn't immediately comply with their demands or with their position. And once Netanyahu dug in his heels, instead of the weaker party giving in, it was in fact the American president who began to retreat from the positions he's taken. So I think there's something to be said in the question that came in. The bottom line here is 2 states for 2 peoples is in everyone's interest, including Israel's interest, and I'm hoping that the president in the year to come will find the political will to do what's going to be necessary to actually advance that process rather than persist in the stalemate that currently exists.
Christopher Dickey, was it a mistake on the part of President Obama right at the outset in this administration to draw a line in the sand and say no more settlements or this is not going to go anywhere?
Well, I think he was outmaneuvered by Netanyahu. I think that when he drew that line, he expected that he could get a lot of support in Israel and among American Jews for the idea of drawing a line on the settlements. There isn't a lot of support, especially for some of the more religious settlements that exist in the West Bank. But Netanyahu then shifted the debate to East Jerusalem and created a crisis there for the Obama administration. The Obama administration walked right into the trap and started saying, we don't want any of this building in East Jerusalem either. And for a lot of sympathizers of Israel, there's a big difference between Jerusalem and the West Bank. It's that kind of nuance that trips up a policy like this if you're not ready for it, if you haven't anticipated it. And as Stephen Walt was saying, he didn't anticipate it. He wasn't ready for what Netanyahu came back at him with.
Professor Barbutt, we have another email here. This one's from Kenya. It's from Mohammed Sheikh in Kenya, and he writes, Obama is only giving lip service to what he calls improving relations with Muslims. In fact, more Muslims have died in Obama's first year in office than in Bush's. In your view, has the president adequately explained this asymmetric war that is being fought against people who are just very glibly called extremists at every turn?
Well, the statistic cited is awfully misleading. Bush's first year in office, as you know, occurred before the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't know that the president can be faulted for not having sufficiently explained the war on terror. After all, these have been dialogues that we've been having here in this country, and 2 presidents have now had with their counterparts in the world. I think the email messages really kind of distorts what the president's been doing. I have a sense that he's continuing to prosecute wars on terror, but in a very different way, that he's doing so more within the rule of law, that he relies more on law. He looks more for interlocutors in other states than did the previous president.
Okay, let's go to the phones. We have a caller here. Abdul's calling us from the United Kingdom. Abdul, go ahead with your question.
Hi, my regard to your guest. I just had a quick a quick comment with regards to the foreign policy, particularly dealing with the extremism and terrorism. What I'm seeing is actually it's the matter of trust that the president has failed to win, particularly on the war fronts, mainly in Afghanistan, for example. There the people are deeply frustrated because of U.S. over-reliance on minority groups and not winning the trust of the major ethnic group. So that's where the the extremism has prevailed, and it's going to grow day by day. So isn't that the main element, the trust with the U.S., the Obama administration has failed to win?
Okay, let me put that question to our panel. Let's start with Christopher Dickey.
Well, I think one of the ironies of Obama's position in Afghanistan is that he's been clear from the beginning he wants to get out of Afghanistan. He doesn't want to get into an endless nation-building project there. And it's one of the reasons that in his Cairo speech he was very clear and said, we don't have any reason or any desire to stay. The only thing that the United States wants to be sure of is that when it leaves, that won't leave behind a situation where people who actively want to attack Americans and attack the United States of America are left to perform and to act the way bin Laden did before 2001. So he wants to get out. He wants to get rid of the extremists, and that will get him out. If somebody would give him the head of Osama bin Laden tomorrow, probably he would be out of Afghanistan very quickly after that. But in the meantime, failing that kind of victory over what he calls extremists, he's in a position where he's got to tread water in Afghanistan and try to make things better, try to stabilize the country. And he's inherited those allies that the caller mentioned, and it's very hard to just reshuffle the deck. Who's he going to go to with the majority? Is he going to go to the Taliban? I think he'd like very much to talk to the Taliban, but he doesn't want to go to the Taliban and talk from a position of weakness. This is what he's being told all the time. The Taliban aren't going to come and negotiate with you as long as they feel that they're winning, and right now they do. So it's a terrible situation for him, but I think the message he wants to get across and needs to get across is that the United States has no intention of staying in Afghanistan, because we all know that Afghans, and rightly so, will fight against any foreign occupier, even if it supposedly has good motives for being in the country.
Okay, we are going to have to take
I'm inclined to doubt that.
Go ahead, Professor Bobbitt.
So I'm inclined to doubt that even if the body of Osama bin Laden were delivered over to President Obama, that he would go for a quick exit. I think our presence in Afghanistan is much more complex now than it was 4 years ago. And although I agree with Christopher Dickey that that the position of trust we have isn't just what the caller asked about, but also one that attaches us to local allies, both in Afghanistan and, very importantly, in Pakistan.
Okay, we're going to have to take a short break right now. More of our discussion in a moment. We'll be right back. Stay there.